Ray Levy, who is an award-winning writer, researcher, and educator who has dedicated her career to mathematical modeling, data science, and AI literacy from kindergarten to industry. She is the inaugural executive director of the Data Science and AI Academy and professor of mathematics at NC State University. She chairs NC State's campus-wide advisory group for AI in business, education, and research, so she is clearly highly qualified to talk to us on these topics. If you wouldn't mind joining me in some applause as we welcome Dr. Levy.
What do you say when it's good day? Good morning, good afternoon. I guess it's after 12. Good afternoon. I'm really happy to be here. How are you? I went and talked to some of you beforehand, and the answer was you're scared. You're eager. You're curious. Is that about handle it around AI? All right. So, and this is my clicker. Is this my clicker? Okay, awesome. How does it work? I see. No, that says danger. The big green button? Awesome. Okay, very good. All right, so I'm Ray, and if you learn nothing else today, you can know that I am now your phone-a-friend around AI. And the Data Science and AI Academy is your phone-a-friend. So you may have a thought tomorrow that you're like, ugh, I wish I asked her that. You can email me, and I will email you back. And if I don't know the answer, I will tell you who does, or I will tell you that nobody does. And I will be honest about that. Okay? So that's probably worth the price of admission right there, right? Now you have a phone-a-friend, and I'm really easy to find. All right, so my job in creating the Data Science and AI Academy is to really help everyone think about how to deal with their own data or other people's data effectively and responsibly. And that's not just for NC State. Right now we're working on a really important project for the whole state of North Carolina to try to answer this question about how could everyone in North Carolina, if they wanted information or education about AI in their home life or in their work life, how could we connect for them all the resources in North Carolina so that it was really easy to figure out that a week from now there's an event in your town that you could go to learn about AI. Or there's something online that you could learn that would be in the area that you're interested. So we already have 80 entities that have volunteered the things that they're already doing to be connected in North Carolina so that more North Carolinians can be connected to the things that already exist for free, both in person in our communities and online. So that's a super exciting opportunity. But if I succeed, if everybody uses AI for everything that they do, what will happen tomorrow? The lights will flicker, right? We don't have enough power for me to succeed at my job. So part of my job also has to be helping people think about how to use AI to do the most important things that AI does the best. Because we may not be able to use it to do all the things all the time, even if we wanted to. Okay, so that's the kinds of things that I think about every day, which is I have this job, but if I succeed, I also can cause some challenges that we would need to address. So how do I succeed in a way that we really succeed? So where I want to start is so I have a set of slides, and I'm happy to share them with you, but usually y'all have a lot to ask and a lot to say. So we like to play this as ask the human about AI. You're used to asking the AI about AI, but what does the AI tell you? Do you trust the answer? Well, there's part of the problem. Do you trust the human? You get to decide. In both cases. All right, so is anybody willing to share? And this is so much fun if you're really willing to share. How do you use AI in your daily life? And you're gonna run around with the mic? You got a mic, all right. So raise your hand if you're willing to share a way that, awesome.
Well, I'll give you an example. I'm a tour guide at a local theater, and I put in a lot of information that I knew about the theater, and AI provided a great itinerary tour for me that I just had to edit, but it was a great starting point.
Awesome. So, had a task, you knew what you wanted. You had in mind what you wanted, except you didn't know the details of what you wanted, but you had the big picture. And that big picture enabled you to ask, probably a chatbot in this case. There's a lot of different kinds of AI tools, but probably a chatbot of some sort, an LLM, a large language model, for something. And then you got something back and you're like, wow, I never thought of things 1, 2, 3, and 4 really stinks, so I'm gonna get rid of 4, because you have you're educated in what you want. You have that discriminatory eye on this is a good idea and this is not a good idea, right? And then 5 was okay, but I'm gonna modify it, and then that's kind of enough, so I'm gonna get rid of 6 through 10. And that is really, and so raise your hand if you use AI in that way. Okay, interesting. So let's get a few more. Other ways you use AI in your daily life. Yeah, over here. He's getting more exercise than me. I feel like I should run around too, just so I get my steps.
I've used it for so much stuff like landscaping my backyard.
Oh, cool. I need to do that.
Yeah.
I have not tried that.
It gave me some great ideas.
Did you give it a picture?
Yes, I did. I took pictures of my backyard and said, how should I do this island? How should I do my screened-in porch and my patio?
Amazing.
And then colors for paint in my house and everything. And since I've been here, I've gained like 7 pounds. So how do I lose this weight?
Okay.
And it says, this is how many grams of protein you should eat. And for everything. And then I'm planning a class reunion and family reunion. So it's helping me do posters and giveaways, little knickknacks to giveaways and all of that.
I love that. Thank you. That's amazing. And you're the second person today that has said, I got a really good diet plan. I want to hear in 2 months if it's possible to follow these plans. I'm really good at generating a plan, but you have to follow it too. So maybe you just need a good plan and then you can follow it. Yeah, one more.
Hi. I was just diagnosed with spinal stenosis, and we have an indoor pool in our community. So I asked ChatGPT, who's my new best friend, I needed a 20-minute workout in the pool, and they break it down. So I went in and they broke it down exactly. I printed it out, and I use that a few times a week. So
and it's working.
That's been helpful. And the other day I was doing something, and my husband actually said to me, why don't you ask Chat? And I was like, oh yeah, I completely forgot about that. So we usually use Chat many times a week. And I like when you get to a certain point at the end, if he'll say to me, give me some more information about this and I could help you. And then you give him more information and he goes further, deeper, deeper, deeper. It's just very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Those are 3 really great examples. So if you do not use AI, you consider yourself to be a not AI user right now, and you're either not using AI because you don't know what to do, or you're maybe a little afraid, or you're gonna do this, you're gonna put up a 0. You might be like, I am in the refusal movement. I refuse to use it for ethical reasons or environmental reasons. So for whatever reason, if you don't use AI, I want you to put up a 0. If you have put your toe in the water, this is your little toe, but you feel like after you put your toe in the water, you kind of took your foot back out again and you were like, I don't know. You know, I put my foot in the water, but I don't know if I like the temperature. That's a 1. If you're like, I've used it a few times and it's been useful, but it's not really my go-to, you're a 2. And then if you're like, I'm pretty much a power user, like this is pretty much my go-to now, you're a 3. Okay, so everybody, I'd like you to put in the air, are you a 0? I'm not doing it for whatever reason. I put my toe in the water. It's not my go-to yet, but I'm trying, or I'm a power user. Go, put your fingers up and look around. Okay, so just at this table, we've got a big range. At this table, we've got a range. At this table, we've got a range. At this table, we've got a range, right? This table is pretty awesome. 0, 1, 2, 3. I love that, right? And so if you look around most tables, you'll see that this audience is composed of people on that whole range from I am not using it intentionally or because I just don't know what to do or I haven't tried or I'm scared, to I've tried it, to I've done it, but I'm not sure it's my go-to, to I am a power user, this is helping me get all my stuff done, right? That's a lot of range. And so what I'm going to do today is try to meet the needs of you all, knowing that you're in really different places around this technology, okay? So some of the ways that people are using AI a lot, let's see if we hit these in just the 3 people that spoke up. So staying organized. I don't know if I heard that. Did we hear? But you could think about that, right? Like, I've got to do these 7 things. Which one should I do first? Or I'm really worried about, I'm trying to do this task. I don't know how to get started. Can you break this up into steps for me so I could just do baby step number 1? But tracking health, we definitely heard, right? Like, getting an exercise plan or tracking health. Generating or summarizing ideas, we definitely heard. Enhancing learning. Did we hear that one? I don't know. I don't think we heard that one. Is anyone using it somehow to enhance their learning? Yeah, can we get, well, right here?
I'm a doctor and I use it on open evidence all the time. So
You use it?
open evidence.
Open evidence?
Yes.
What is that?
It's a nice AI for tracking real-time medical questions.
Okay.
And it's also in UpToDate, which is it summarizes all the literature on a current medical question, and it has an AI feature now.
So you're a doctor. Mm-hmm. You have to deal with all kinds of patients. Mm-hmm. There is no way you could be sleeping and staying up to date on all of the literature for all of the things a person could present to you. But what the AI tool that you're using is doing is only going to trusted sources. Did you hear that part? So she's going to a tool that is built in perhaps a chat interface, right? But what it's doing is not just generating the next most likely word, which is what some chatbots are doing, right? Based on anything it has been trained on. It is a tool that is specialized for doctors to help them when they have a question or are seeing a particular symptom to summarize for them the world of literature, the world of studies out there that might be relevant to that particular thing that they need to be worried about. And so I really want you to think a little bit about in the world when you're feeling afraid of AI because you don't know what it's doing. That's partly because you're talking about a category like transportation, right? You can't tell me in specific terms about what transportation is doing. It is doing many things in many ways. I am transporting myself from one part of the room to another, right? That is very different than thinking about a public transportation system. It is very different than thinking about my e-bike, right? Those all do different things and are designed to do different things. So we're at the point with AI, and I'll talk a little bit about this, where you can have a talking interface to a tool that's doing something that is trained to do something in a reliable way for a specialized audience based on a finite or maybe ever improved but trusted set of resource materials that make sure that they're getting answers that first of all, they know where they came from. They probably, do you get different opinions, like, you know, some people say this, or some studies say this, some studies say that, or does it present sort of like a definitive? You can ask it to do either. So that's another interesting thing is with these tools that have these chat interfaces, you can say, give me 4 options. Give me the top 4 options. You can say, give me the top option, because it's an emergency and I need to know right now what to do. I just have to pick what is the top option, right? I don't have time. Or you could weigh the top 10 options, right? So that's really interesting. Speaking to a machine. So how many of you know one or more computer programming languages really well? I know some of you are in here. Okay, Okay, one at this table, one at this table, one at that table, one at this table, one at that table, and one at that table. That's not all of us. All of us are not fluent in the language of machines. If we want to make a machine do something, we can't talk to it in a very effective, efficient way, because this is how we talk. The amazing, revolutionary thing about what most people are calling AI is this ability to use what used to be called natural language processing. Use your natural language with a machine and give it instructions instead of necessarily having to learn how to code. But if you are a coder, you can also have it generate code. You better know how to test that code. Okay. And if we don't have any entry-level programmers, they will never learn either. So we got to think about that. Okay, so I am a mathematician. My work is in data. I used to study how fluids move and how diseases happen in your body that have to do with different fluids. Everything I knew in math depended on data, and I often was collaborating with someone in the sciences who was collecting the data, and then I would create mathematical models to be able to predict what was happening in those situations. AI also depends on data, but that data isn't always just numbers. That data could be a picture that you give it of your house when you want to get a paint color. Now, it is going to turn that picture into a bunch of numbers, but you never have to know about it, right? It could be a smell. It could be a sensor, right? For a perfume company that's trying to understand, what are you smelling when you smell? How are you reacting to smells? How are smells characterized? What are the components of smells? What do smells make people do? How do we remember better because of smells? So when you're thinking about your own data these days, you can think about numbers, but you also can realize that there is a world of data that computers can better take in to help you do things. So you might start thinking, like, which of my data might be used to train an AI? And when I say train an AI, it could be someone else's AI that they want to work better for a consumer like you, but it also could be your own use. Like, what do I need to tell it? Someone, the last one of these I did said, I used AI to write the eulogy for my family member. And I would have been I was grieving, and I really didn't want to do that task. But I could tell it just a few things that I really cared about. And it came back with a really, really decent first draft that I would have agonized over for probably a week. And then from there, I could refine it and say, no, they weren't really like this, they were really like that, right? But get to the place that it was something that then they could say was their own, that they created, but it was based on something that, again, was in conversation with a machine that had been trained on many people's feelings about many other people. Does that make sense? So that's a way of not training in the sense of creating the LLM or the model in the first place, but it is retraining or sort of refining training. They are constantly learning, right? That's why we call it artificial intelligence, because we are constantly feeding it new data, and that data is causing it to be able to make inferences, predictions, suggestions in new ways every time it gets a new piece of data. Now, what you should really think about in your life is, what are you willing to share? And are you willing to share it with a free chatbot, in which case you are giving something for free to a commercial product? Are you going to buy a paid version, which may read the fine print, there's a lot of it, may offer you some privacy about your data? How private are you about your data? Tell the person next to you, how private are you about your data? Go. All right, did you tell them? All right, 0, if you are not private about your data. 1, if you're a little bit private about your data. 2, if you're pretty darn private about your data. And 3, if you didn't even tell me your real name when you came here. Go. I would say I'm like I try to be a 2, but I'm not sure. I'm like a 1 or a 2. Okay, we all think like we're 1, 2s, or 3s in here somewhere. So we all think there were no 0s. It was very cute. There were some 3s. So you got to figure out who they are. When you're a mathematician, you love to play the game, Who's a Spy? And the answer is kind of everybody. So it's not as fun a game. Like, I lived in DC for a while, and a lot of mathematicians work in the intelligence community, and so then you're like, okay, not as fun. So then you have to pretend on the subway or whatever, like, who's a spy on the subway? It's a fun game. You can play it sometime, but some of y'all are because you did not tell us your names when you came in. Okay, so am I private about my data? Well, it's complicated. Okay, so I intentionally went to the thrift store because that's the only place you can get a dumb television. Because for a while I was thinking, I don't want everyone to know what I'm watching on television, but what do I have? I have Netflix, and Netflix knows for like the last 100 years what I watch, so I'm not sure. I'm kind of fooling myself, but I just kind of didn't want my television listening to me all the time in my house. So I also don't let my phone track or listen to me, and I have to kind of constantly keep telling it not to, because there's buttons I can't seem to remove that turn on listening, and then I try to turn it off again, but it is super hard to be private these days. I had a dumb pedometer that did not phone home anywhere, as if anybody cared how many steps I was walking, but anyway, I was really into trying to be like not transmitting my information everywhere. And then my husband, who's really a nerd also like me, wired up our whole house. It was great. Like the other day, we had this toilet that, you know, if you don't jiggle the handle, it keeps running. Well, we have our whole house with sensors, so it will tell us, like, you know, toilet number whatever is running, you better go jiggle the handle. And so we were going to bed, and he's like, oh, we get this alarm. He's like, go jiggle the handle of the toilet. But it's cool, and you don't get a flood when you're out of town, right? Which absolutely can happen. So I try to be super private in all these ways, but guess what? CVS has got me. And has for like 20 years. I have a deep love of a sale, a deep love of coupons, and where are my most private purchases potentially? At the pharmacy. Have you ever bought something at a pharmacy that you were like, I wish nobody could see this on the way to the counter because I feel like this is a little private situation here? Yes, thank you. Yes, me too. And they know all that. They have all that in their systems. And when you teach students that go into data science, you're like, oh, I know, that student could see all that if they wanted. Like when my students started going to all of these social media companies, I was like, okay, there is nothing private. I can have a private group all I want, but I know there's someone in that company that can see those things. Those are not encrypted at that level, right? So is there privacy? I don't know. So how we feel about privacy is quite situational, and often we're willing to give away our data, right? That's what we're doing at CVS. We're saying, okay, well, I'm going to be loyal to you, and you're going to track me and understand my consumer behavior, and in exchange, you're going to send me coupons that give me a delight and make my life exciting and better on a weekly basis, if not more often. And there are laws to protect our data, but again, there's just sort of limitations to that, right? So in practical terms. And sometimes, like, if you have data that goes into your doctor's record and it's incorrect, like there was a time my blood pressure number was just like weirdly bizarre and couldn't have possibly been right, but it's in my record, and beside my record, it doesn't say that wasn't right. And so if there's an average, it's getting averaged in. You know what I mean? And so most doctors are very clever, and they'll look at things skeptically and with sensibilities. But if there were ever judgments about insurance being made on some average or other in the future, which in some cases you can imagine could happen, right? It's very, very hard to get things out of your record when somebody writes them down. And sometimes things get written down that aren't quite right because of how insurance works. And that's also kind of weird. So our data isn't perfect, I think is what I'm trying to say. And it's not perfect. It's not the fault of the people writing it down. There's just a lot of things about our systems of collecting data. And so data is never, ever perfect. It's never complete. It's never perfect. And sometimes it's just plain wrong. Am I trying to scare you? No. Am I trying to raise your awareness of data privacy so you can make good decisions? Yes. Are you with me? Yes. Okay. All right. So when we're talking about AI, we're talking about models. What do models do? Models, like I'm a mathematical modeler, models take in data. If it's a nuclear experiment, there haven't been so many of those, right? So for nuclear scientists, your data sets tend to be small. You really don't want to have a lot of them, right? So there are some cases where you have to deal with small data sets. AI, machine learning, the way you have a machine learn, the way it learns is from tons of data, and these systems, the newer AI systems, tend to benefit from a lot of data, which is why companies really want to aggregate all your data. And then once it has all that data, it starts looking for patterns and trends. It can make suggestions, decisions, predictions. They are not always right. I really love the ones for weather, where it shows you, like the hurricane. It could go here, it could go here, and the cone of uncertainty, shrinks as the amount of time you're trying to. I feel like for me, weather is the best way of getting all the humans to understand that data is not perfect, that making predictions is always more uncertain the further out you're trying to predict, right? And that you do the best you can when you use a number of different models and try to make sense out of things from more models. All right, so you came here to learn about AI. AI comes with its own vocab. You guys have a bingo card. You're gonna do some winning now. No one's been playing bingo, by the way. If you're playing bingo, this is the time to start. Okay, so I'm gonna run through these. Ooh, sorry, I just ran in front of the projector. There's a bunch of words associated with AI. And so, agentic AI. Raise your hand if you've heard of agentic AI. This is sort of like, it's not even new, but it's the latest, so not a lot. Okay, so you might hear about AI agents. In fact, I had a big argument with a hotel. So I called a hotel to change my reservation. There was a person voice that was sort of halting, not perfect, and had a kind of informal way of speaking. But in like 2 sentences, as I was getting irritated, as I usually do on the phone, I realized it was not a human, pretty quick. And then I was like, ooh, let's play this game. Let's try to get it to say it's a machine, right? So I was like, are you a machine? And it said, I am a real authorized name of company agent. And I was like, ooh, agent is what I used to yell when I wanted the human, right? But now agents are what we call the machines. So agentic AI means you have a instance meaning like you tell the AI tool to take on a certain set of subtasks, a certain set of tasks or personas. So in your family, maybe one person does the dishes. Maybe you have somebody you hired to do the landscaping. Maybe another person deals with the finances. So if you had an AI agent, a set of agents doing work for you, and you were sort of trying to play out a company, you might assign different roles so that the program is taking on different perspectives to try to bring more perspectives to the problem that it's trying to solve. So you might also say, I want this to show me a conversation between 4 agents. This one's really skeptical. This one's really enthusiastic. This one has to have a reference for anything that gets said if it's going to believe it. And this one is just goofy and going to kind of go off on a wild tangent, right? Now, here's the thing we're going to discuss. Make a hospital for a mermaid. Go. And so all of a sudden it's pulling in, oh, well, it's a hospital for a mermaid, so it needs to have veterinary, but it also needs to have human, blah, blah, blah. Oh, goofy ideas, interesting ideas. But you get sort of those different perspectives on addressing the problem, and you get to say which perspectives you want to bring to the table. Or you could have different countries. You should represent this country. You should represent this country. These countries have different rules, different laws, but we want to make a company that works in all of these different countries. So make an agent that reflects the litigation and regulatory documents for this topic in those different countries. And we want to address these 6 countries first. So you'd have 6 agents. Does that make sense? And then you might subdivide, like you're regulatory and you are litigation. Is that what you say? Okay. So agentic AI is big, and we have companies in town that are all in on this is how we're going to do all of our AI as a company from now on, is think about it in the agentic framework. And so then retrieval, that's what that means. And then the difference between generative and predictive AI. So when I say old school machine learning, I used to do fluid mechanics. We can do modeling in a way that is more like look at all this particular data that was chosen for a particular reason and make predictions or find patterns. But generative AI is more like, with the LLMs generally, I'm just going to make a sensible, I'm going to usually either generate images or words, and I'm just going to do the thing that seems most sensible next, given the prompt that you gave me. So you could say traditional or predictive AI is still there. It's still being built into things. And then generative is this new idea based on some sophisticated different kinds of programming that were surprisingly good, even though people couldn't really explain exactly how they were working. Is that fair to say? I mean, I asked the most sophisticated AI scientists, can you explain deep learning to me? They were like, we have no idea why it's working so well. But it's working well, and the proof's in the pudding, and the pudding looks good. Sometimes the pudding looked really bad, right? I could say that word that's on some of your bingos. I like to call it garbage. Other people call it, when an AI does something bad, what do they call it?
Hallucination.
Hallucination. I don't like saying that word because to me that's sort of like definitely on your bingo card. But to me it's garbage. It's wrong. Like if a kid gave you the wrong answer on their math test, they would not be like, oh, you're hallucinating. It's just wrong, and it's not excusable. All right, but if some of the pudding looks good, people are willing to have some bad batches. But I would say, don't look at the fine print until you ask for the slides later. But the fine print is kind of the things from the previous slide. But on the left-hand side, if you had to put things in big buckets, which is really what you're going to take away, we have that traditional AI that was trying to take in all the data of handwriting and be able to read the writing on your letters that you send to the post office. Right, to be able to do handwriting recognition so you don't have to have humans reading and sorting all that mail. That was one of the earliest machine learning tasks, was to try to take all these handwritten digits and identify, is that really a 7? You did some of that work with CAPTCHA. You have been training AI for years. Why are you looking for bicycles and crosswalks right now? Why? Why? You are training you're training vision, you're training computer vision for self-driving cars. You are the product. You are the testing, right? You are training AI. That is what CAPTCHA is about. You should be mad that you are not getting your 5 to 50 cents every time you do one of those. I get mad. You can now get mad with me. Okay, so traditional AI was finding patterns, making predictions. Generative AI, like I said, is taking in data that you didn't even create for the purposes you meant, taking in data that's garbage, and trying to make a reasonable prediction, whether that's the next word, the next set of words, what you should eat tomorrow, how often you should swim. And then I mentioned agentic AI, which is, again, not going to be the cool new buzzword tomorrow. But for today, it is. And for today, that means sort of these different personas that you might create within the AI to try to subdivide the jobs so that you get more back and forth. You don't just get this is the answer, but you get a little more nuance of here's different perspectives or different ways of dealing with the problem. So is that useful? I hope that you're walking away like, okay, if I hear some of these words, at least I can go back and look at Ray's slides, which you're welcome to have. And of course, I'm your phone a friend too. Okay, but I really want you to think of transportation, not bicycles. It's really a whole suite of things that are more and more, I hope, being trained to do specific tasks rather than trying to train something to do any task. I do not think, and this is a Ray speaking, this is not NC State, this is not anybody else, I don't think it's a good use of energy to try to create generalized AI that can do anything. I don't want, I'll go to my general practitioner but once things get serious, I want to go to a specialist. That's how I feel about AI. And again, if I'm going to use AI to do the most important things, you're going to need the training, time, energy, data to be focused on what is most relevant. I mean, the cool thing is sometimes things are relevant that you don't realize, and that's why it's very powerful, is sometimes it brings in data that you didn't even think would be useful and can apply it to the problem. So the problem of using too narrow a data set is you don't get that unpredicted usefulness. But again, I am not personally, will not advocate for you to do generalized AI. Okay, so wrapping up pretty soon, just doing a little time check with my friends over here, okay? So if the ideas of AI are old, Why does it seem so new? Because in the 1950s, we had most of these ideas written down as mathematicians and computer scientists. The neural networks that are being used to train the AI are not significantly different from how they were envisioned a really long time ago. But we did not have, what did we not have? We did not have sensors everywhere. You are carrying them. You are wearing them. They are all over your house. They are all over the street. So we didn't have the sensors. Hardware was way expensive and took up a whole room. The computers couldn't process anything fast enough. So it would take your lifetime to enact some of those ideas. Things weren't connected, so the internet matters. Storage, right? We couldn't store enough data. So even if it was somewhere, it was probably in a file cabinet in 100 different locations. You couldn't put all that together and access it and process it. And then building these massive models, again, relies on all those things. So it seems new, but it's not. The ideas have been there forever, but we made some breakthroughs in this combo that all of a sudden positioned several different companies to make breakthroughs. And the question for the companies was, I know we're all working on this. Mine's kind of half-baked. Should we let it go yet? When should we release? You have some companies now saying, we were being cautious. We had a ChatGPT, but we knew it was going to make boo-boos. And so we didn't release, but now we maybe regret it. Do you know what I mean? So we also are getting beta versions of things. We are the testers. We are the trainers. I do see a hand in the back. Yes?
Yep. My quick question is, are there new types of hardware being developed specifically for AI? Because
Yes.
the models have required that?
Yes, and I am not a hardware expert, but I even heard recently, there's a lot of concerns about water usage, and I know that there's a lot of, the hard thing about computers is they need to be cooled, and I think there's some technological innovation, not just in making it able to store more stuff, but also dealing with the cooling issue, which then could address some of the water or other environmental issues. That's the one I've heard that seems the most exciting. So yes, there's new chips. We're sort of running into a limit to how small we can make things, and but then quantum is another thing that people talk about, right? Quantum technologies also potentially speeding up processing. So I think those are the things that you're hearing right now the most. Thanks for the question. So we're getting lots of new industries. I've got 3 examples just from NC State. The first one is patient safety. So we're looking at data from nursing homes to try to prevent infections. During COVID, that was a huge problem. And so we're trying to use some data that you would be capturing anyway to try to get ahead of things if something was going to go wrong. We have such exciting things happening in North Carolina around precision agriculture. Many new tractors are basically sophisticated sensors. My 1965 Ford tractor, not a sensor. Other than my daughter sitting on it and being like, ooh, looks really dry today, might want to turn off the tractor so we don't start a fire, is what she told me yesterday. But there's such amazing things we're doing around sweet potatoes in particular. In North Carolina, we're one of the leading producers of varietals of sweet potatoes, which are super good, healthy food for those of you on your diets. And we also our farmers, when I go to, say, the Soybean Growers Association meeting, they are asking questions about their data and how to make decisions about how do I know whether to water today or not? How do I know whether to spray or not? How do I know what to plant? And we will be helping them. We are building a new kind of extension agent. You used to bring them your soil. Did any of you take soil samples when you were little to your extension agent to see what was going on? We have agents now in some of our counties that you can bring them your data. You can bring them your AI questions. So if you're really excited about supporting it, we need to grow this. We only have it in 6 counties. We want it in all 100 counties to have data and AI extension agents that can help you as a human in person deal with your data. And finally, we have a new building going up on campus. If you haven't seen it, Woodson Hall, right where the brickyard used to be. And did anyone go in Harrelson? I had all my math classes in the big, round, ugly building called Harrelson. Ugly, no. I mean, formerly beautiful, kind of crazy building that was round, Harrelson. But now we're going to have amazing AI-driven labs in Harrelson Hall to do molecular discovery. And I'm super excited about this in lots of ways because just mathematically, the number of combinations of things you could combine to make new molecules is huge. And AI is speeding up discovery probably 100 times, if not 1,000 times. In our labs, so that's pretty exciting. So we view AI as a threat, and if you look at an international comparison, in the US compared to other countries, our attitude towards AI is more fear, more skepticism, more viewing that it's going to take our jobs. That's what our press is telling us, and that's how we feel. And there may be things to be concerned about, but compared to other countries, people seem to see it as an opportunity. And so we should just be aware of that, right? That partly we as a culture are churning on fear and not churning on opportunity, and we might want to just think about both of those. My Lyft drivers tell me, I don't know who to trust. I love my Lyft drivers because they're like come from all walks of life. They have all levels of education. They come from all different countries. They come from all different political backgrounds. And so I have for years been talking to Lyft drivers to understand what the heck is going on in the American population. And all around the world, and they just say, I have no idea. And somebody here said it, like, I'm here so that I can protect myself financially from being scammed. I am here to make sure that I can figure out what's true and what's not true. I just don't want to be taken advantage of, and I want good information. I will make one suggestion about that. Librarians are still the humans who are trained to connect other humans to trusted sources of information. We need our librarians more than ever right now. Okay, little plug, love your librarian. All right, so yeah. At the same time, these are the things I'm excited about. I'm super excited about personalized medicine. I do not want the same blood pressure assignment as all y'all, right? I want whatever is going on with my blood pressure to be addressed. And if I say 2 months from now, if I don't tell the doctor anything's changed, the doctor does not do anything different until I sort of raise the alarm. Does that make sense? We get our medications, we take them every day, but we're not adjusting them for any reason, right? It's still sort of take 2 aspirin and don't call me unless you have a really big problem. I'm really excited about a day in which we could be administering medications more like you're able to do if you have diabetes now, where you have continuous monitoring of the thing that is your biggest problem, and you can adjust as needed based on things you're doing, like eating. That's exciting to me. I'm really excited about disaster preparedness. I told you of my love of weather models and about agriculture. And then I really want you to think, raise your hand if you think you know if you had all of the resources in the world and a magic wand, you know what problem you would solve tomorrow. Raise your hand. Okay, that is 4 people. You all are investors, true? I really want, if there's one thing I want you to do, besides feel a little more like you have a phone a friend after today, and the librarians, is think about, as you're investing, what are the important problems that we should be using these tools, which have some economic, power, water expense to them. What should you be encouraging the companies that you invest in to be doing with all that new ability? What problems do you want to push them to solve? Because my friend who worked on malaria got switched off of malaria to LLMs. No one was speaking up for malaria, and they almost had it. And that whole team got dissolved. They spread to the wind. Some of them retired. It's gone. Collectively, you all have power to think about that and to convince your friends how to leverage what's important. If you're concerned about responsible AI in our area, Phaedra Boinadiris lives here. She does a lot of work on frameworks. She is the global lead for responsible AI. I will give you these slides. These are things you can think about if you are deploying AI. There are frameworks that help you think about what are the questions you should consider. And so in considering them, it will enable you to use it as a tool both effectively and responsibly. So going forward, it will be interesting for you to tell me How will you use these AI technologies? Will you use it every day? Will it fundamentally change how you get things done? It could. But also, use it responsibly. Think about how to use it for the important problems. And keep thinking about your data. It's yours. What do you want to share? What do you want to be really careful about? And how our companies use their data? There was a funny cartoon. Stephen Von Nichols is a tech writer, and he posted this cartoon. It was sort of like saying to the company, what do you want? The company's like, AI. When do you want it? Now. Are you going to fix your data first? No. How's that going to go? We don't know. Right? The coherence of your data, knowing what you're feeding in so that it isn't garbage in, will influence what comes out. And so working on our data, not forgetting about our data scientists and the data, is super important. So looking to the future, I think you'll hear about, do we keep the human in the loop? That means, how do we put in human safeguards to the things that the AI are doing? And how does the AI also, how do you have AI in the loop to protect you from what the humans might do? It could go both ways, right? You can have AI acting poorly, you can have humans acting poorly. I mentioned a few times agentic AI, and I do think that this question of when can you trust AI, and the work that Phaedra is doing globally to try to ask, if you are in a military context, what is a trustworthy and ethical use of AI? These are really important questions that are being considered on a global level at the UN, at NATO, and other organizations. So these are important conversations that people in our area are really central to. So I just want you to stay curious. I think that's your best safeguard from bad things that could happen. And I really hope this one looks a little garbled. But our Go link is go.ncsu.edu, DSA, Data Science and AI Academy. And I hope we'll stay in touch. We have monthly AI hot topics. They're free and open to the public. Come have breakfast. Come hear experts. You're all welcome. Subscribe to our newsletter. We have 100 classes every year that are no quizzes, no tests, no exams, 1 credit. Learn how to do something cool. You're all welcome. And I'm just really grateful for the time to be here with you today. Thanks. Oh, and we have one more question, but let me just say thanks.
What is that website?
So
I can't read it because it seems
I can't read it either. So this is Go. Oh, there it is up at the top. Good. Yeah, it says subscribe to our newsletter. Yeah, this one was funny. We did have some little technical issues with DSA, but it's go.ncsu.edu/DSA. And we're pretty easy to find. I'm really easy to, I go by Ray Levy, but my actual name is Rachel. You can find me, and they know how to find me. And just thank you so much for this time today. Hope this was useful.
Thank you, Dr. Levy.